Ian Begley of ESPN New York. You were following him last night during the NBA draft at Ian Begley. And Beggs, the New York Knicks have the worst record in franchise history this past season, and they do it all for the fourth pick in the NBA draft. How do you shine this turd?
Not a good night for the franchise. Not a good night. I mean, it's tough to really put a positive spin on it. I mean, the day after, kind of take a sobering look at what happened, and the optimistic Knicks fan can say, "Hey, we can still get a good piece at 4," and they might be right, because you probably could get Emmanuel Mudiay at that spot, assuming Philly takes D'Angelo Russell at 3. So you get a kid who many believe can turn into a top point guard in the NBA, but certainly not what the Knicks were hoping for. They were hoping top 2. They were hoping to get one of the 2 big guys to really bring in a piece who can change the franchise, and that did not happen.
What are the chances, Beggs, that they move back now, that they work a deal with somebody to move back and get Willie Cauley-Stein?
Everything is on the table. So as far as putting odds on it, it's hard to know, because those discussions haven't even probably taken place yet. Maybe they've done some beginning talks with some teams, but still nothing serious yet, because the lottery was last night. But you can be sure that Steve Mills and Phil Jackson will be taking phone calls from opposing execs about trading that pick, trading down, maybe trading for a veteran player. Everything's on the table right now.
And so basically, since they did not get 1 or 2 and they don't get one of the top 2 guys, Okafor Towns, the feeling would be, if they were to trade back, now that everything is on the table, the feeling is that whoever's there at 4 might not be a big enough difference maker by himself, and if they can get multiple bodies for that pick, it could be better for the overall team. Is that the feeling?
Well, I think that has to be part of the thinking, because there are players later in this first round, if you can get your hands on 2 picks, that can really help things. If you can snag a Willie Cauley-Stein and then get a pick in the late teens or the early 20s and get a rotation piece there, that might be a better haul than getting 1 point guard, whether it's Mudiay or Russell or even a forward at Justice Winslow. You could get yourself a better haul, but the positioning has to be right. So, you're talking about an inexact science, and everything that you do with the draft has a lot of risk associated with it, and trading down is just another move that has a ton of risk associated with it.
So, all right, so here's the worst case scenario, 4th pick. Most likely you get Emmanuel Mudiay. We believe he is going to grow into a very good point guard. What moves do they have to make in free agency to, kind of make this not be a terrible, terrible thing?
Well, then you go after big guys, because you have a guard in place. So then you go after wings, you go after big. I think they'll go hard after Greg Monroe out of Detroit, and they would, I think, do well to lock him up. But then you have to look at trying to get a defensive center to be behind both Greg and Carmelo. And then maybe you look at a Robin Lopez, try to bring him in. And then that's pretty much spending all of your money at that point. So you're left to bringing guys on veteran minimum deals. So, that would be not a bad offseason if they could bring in Mudiay, bring in Greg Monroe, and bring in a defensive center like Robin Lopez. That's not the end of the world. That's a pretty good haul for one summer. And then you have the salary cap boost coming in 2016. So, that to me is what the Knicks are going to be looking at. They're going to be targeting bigs and seeing what they can do on the open market.
Ian Begley of ESPN New York with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team. Ian, I understand that the president of basketball operations for the majority of teams, it's not like every single one had that guy there, but having general manager Steve Mills there last night and not having Phil Jackson present at the lottery, was that a bad look for the Knicks?
Yeah, bad optics. I mean, if I'm a Knicks fan and I know the team's paying the president $60 million to run the team, I would want him representing my team at the draft lottery. Phil, if real estate reports are correct, lives about 0.3 miles from where the lottery was held. So he was a stone's throw from the hotel where they held the lottery. So I don't know why he wasn't there, but if I'm a Knicks fan, I'm probably a little ticked off about that, about Phil not being there. I'm sure he just didn't want to be there if the Knicks were to end up where they ended up, which is with the 4th pick. He didn't want to have to probably face the music, but to me, he should have been there.
It's hard to have confidence in Phil now when you look at the Knicks players in the playoffs. You see the 4th pick, and we're coming off that worst season ever. It's becoming more and more difficult to believe in Phil's vision.
Well, you know what? It all hinges on this summer to me, because this summer is when the Knicks will chase after a player they're going to pay a significant amount of money. And if you make a mistake there, that really sets you back. So they have to get that right. And then you talk about, other ancillary pieces. If you make a mistake there, it's not the end of the world. But if you're bringing in a big money player, a max player, anywhere near a max player, you can't make a mistake there, because as we saw with Amari Stoudemire, that can set the franchise back. I'm not saying that the Knicks were terrible with Amari, but they didn't reach the goals that they had set when they brought him in here. So this is a crucial summer for Phil. Talk about his vision. He's got to start to fulfill that vision in July.
Well, Ian Begley of ESPN New York with Armen and Levack. And Ian, this not getting the top 1 or 2 pick is going to set the Knicks back. And we live in a world where we were already questioning Phil Jackson's commitment to the Knicks. If he cannot get a competitive team together this season, perhaps them getting this 4th pick in the lottery, does this maybe speed up the process of Phil's exit looking, a year out from now as well?
Well, listen, you got a guy in the building named Isaiah Thomas who's running the Liberty, who, in Jim Dolan's eyes, is a candidate to run the Knicks. So if there's any inkling of Phil wanting to leave, not wanting to fulfill his contract, I don't think you'll see, Jim Dolan's going to be upset because he'd be out of a lot of money, but you won't see him fret, because I think he's got a candidate that he thinks can come in and run the franchise in Isaiah Thomas. That being said, we don't know. We don't have any clue. There's been nothing that Phil has said that leads you to believe that he's ready to jump ship this year, next year. He has left open the possibility of him not finishing up a contract in year 5, but he hasn't said anything that led anybody to believe that he's ready to jump ship in the next couple of seasons.
Beggs, I got to be honest. When you drew the line between the Knicks opening at possible president and bringing Isaiah Thomas back on board, I actually got a little sick in my stomach.
You know what? You got to think of it as a realistic possibility, given who owns the team and given how that owner feels about the guy who's running Liberty. So, listen, if it doesn't work out with Phil, Isaiah becomes the next logical candidate, because Jim Dolan owns the team and he loves Isaiah Thomas, and it's as simple as that.
Oh, well, that's nauseating. On a similar topic, hey, aren't you getting married soon?
Yes, sir. End of the month, pal.
Nice, man. Good for you. Are you excited at this point? Nervous? What are your feelings?
I'm excited, and I'll give you guys the live play-by-play. I'll call in the station as I'm walking down the aisle. You guys can talk me through it, maybe talk me out of it. Who knows? It'll be a good time.
Please don't, man. Just from someone who's been married in the radio for 6 years, I have tried some of that stuff. I've done the whole, live broadcast our baby's birth and all that stuff. And my wife, that has not gone over well ever, anytime I've ever done that.
Hasn't played well on the home front, huh?
No, not at all. So my advice would be to stay away from that. But look, hopefully this will be the last time we talk to you before you're married. Your life will be changed the next time we talk. Congratulations, man, and good luck with the marriage.
Thank you, brother. Really appreciate it. Always great to talk to you guys.
That's the best news you've given us all day, too, so we love it.
All right, gents. Be good.